Just like when you start a new job or sign a lease, the contract is what both sides agree on before they move forward. In Android, it's important to define in the very beginning what your database design would look like, so that when you're writing the code for your app, you can always use the contract to tell you any information you need about the database. More specifically, the contract in Android is a class that defines the tables and the columns for each table that are included in the database. A good way to organize a contract class is to put the definitions that relate generally to the whole database directly in the contract class, and then create an inner class for each table and include the columns for each of those tables inside that inner class. Here's an example contract from the Android developers website. It's supposed to define a database for a feed reader. It only includes one inner class called feed entry, which itself includes the constants defining the table name and the names of each of its columns. Notice that the constructor here has been declared to be private. You should never need to create an instance of the contract class because the contract is simply just a class filled with DB-related constants that are all static. So it makes sense to make the constructor private. Also notice that our feed entry inner class is implementing the interface base columns. The base columns interface automatically includes a constant representing the primary key field called _ID. Some Android adapters will expect your contract to have this constant defined. It's not always required to implement base columns interface, but that can help your database fit in better with the Android framework.
Great! Now that you know what a contract should look like, let's create one of our own for the Waitlist toy app. Make sure you try and write the code changes yourself after watching these videos. All of the changes that you need to do are marked as to-dos inside the exercise code.
But before we dive into coding, let's spend some time mapping out what our table should look like. We need to store the guest's name, number of those in the party, and the timestamp in which each guest was added to the database, so that we can display them in order. Finally, we need a unique identifier for each row to be able to delete particular rows when needed. That looks neat, and everything we need seems to fit in one table, which makes things a lot simpler. So let's start coding. This is the first exercise, titled Created Contract. Open up Waitlist Contract, and inside the Waitlist Contract class, create an inner class called Waitlist Entry that implements the base columns interface. And inside that inner class Waitlist Entry, create a static final string defining the table's name. Let's call our table Waitlist, and then after that, create a static final string for each of the columns in the waitlist table, representing the guest's name, the party size, and the timestamp. Notice that we didn't need to create a string for the ID, because that's what the base columns interface already does for us, remember?
Perfect! That looks like a solid contract. I'm sure both parties will be happy to sign. Next, we'll be creating the actual database that complies with this contract. But before we go there, try to complete this exercise yourself. And to verify that everything works after you're done, we've created some unit tests for you. If you're not sure how to run unit tests, check out the next video on how to do so.